Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is time once again for the Blitz Boys podcast here on the Jack Wagon Sports Network. Slade and I are here to break down Week 8, talk a little bit of Week 9 to get you ready for the upcoming weekend. It's going to be a great show. We're excited that you're here with us. We have a ton of new subscribers, so thank you for joining the channel here, and we really appreciate it. Make sure to be a friend and tell a friend. So let's go ahead and dive right into this past weekend. This is going to be a little ACC heavy to start. We're going to talk Clemson, Florida State, Duke, and a few other schools here. But let's start with Clemson. So coming into the season, Clemson was being hyped up as another possible national championship contender. Cade Klubnik had, got a little experience underneath his belt last year. Garrett Riley, the former TCU offensive coordinator, was coming over to join Clemson. And it has been just an utter disaster across the board, I would say, for Clemson. They now have 3 losses at this point in the season. They've lost to Duke, Florida State, and then this past weekend, they lost an ugly game to Miami, which, to be completely honest, in my opinion, they shouldn't have lost. But nonetheless, they do. Slade, I just want to get your opinion real quick on what you think Clemson's biggest problem has been, and how far down do you think they're going to fall this season? Like, do you think this is rock bottom for them, or do you see them, continuing to fall going forward?
Um, yeah, so I think their biggest problem is the rush offense. Just in their game against Miami, they averaged zero point 0.9 yards per carry.
Mhm.
They ran the ball 34 times. That's pretty pitiful. Uh, the fact that people just aren't on the same page. I mean, you had Cade Klubnik say like the last play was supposed to be a handoff. He runs it damn near out of bounds. I see their season kind of staying like this: win one, lose one, win one, lose one. I mean, they have NC State next. They're 10-point favorites. I think that they can win that game, but then they play Notre Dame, and I don't care if it's at home or not. I think Notre Dame's going to wipe the floor with them. The similar score we saw Duke beat them by. Um, and then after that, Georgia Tech, I think they could win there, but then again, I see them getting waxed by North Carolina, and then end the season with what I think will be a close game. I think these two teams are kind of similar in that they're kind of one game I play good, one game I don't. In South Carolina being their last game of the season, I just think it's one week they're gonna feel like, yep, maybe we've turned the corner, and then the next week it's like, nope, we just got waxed by, you know, a team that lost to Virginia.
Yeah. I mean, I really feel like this, as hyped up as Garrett Riley was coming into Clemson, and I really feel like Clemson, I isn't overly talented like they used to be. I mean, this is something we talked about before. We've seen an evening out of talent across the board because you can't hold on to guys, for 4 years saying, "Hey, if you just stick it out here, this guy's an NFL talent. He's gonna leave, and then you're the next guy up." That's not what players do anymore. They see a gap somewhere else. I'm gonna go play there. I'm gonna get my time, and then I'm off to the NFL. Um, but there's still immense talent at Clemson. Um, Obviously, it's an issue with if Cade Klubnik is changing the play call at the line. Dabo Sweeney came out and said, "Hey, it was supposed to be a design run. He was supposed to hand it off. He decided to keep it." At the same time, though, as a head coach, you're not supposed to throw your fucking player under the bus. Like, it is your responsibility to be like, "Hey, it was a bad call. This is something we need to work on." There's so many other ways to word that and work around that situation than throwing your quarterback under the bus and saying, "We called this play. He ran this play." Um, I think that's just total lack of accountability by a very well respected head coach. I mean, obviously, I think we've had our issues with him on this channel, but still, at the end of the day, he's won national titles. He's recruited very well. He deserves some respect. But the fact that he just came out and just threw his quarterback under the bus like that, I really don't like that. Again, yeah, that's a huge mess up. That's something that he probably shouldn't have done. Just his reaction to it, I do not like. Um, but I mean, for me, this offense is just horrible. It's one thing to have like a down offense, but this is like a whole nother level. And again, with the talent they have is what's keeping them in these games. It. And I was at the game when they played Wake Forest. They cannot move the football. And then I look at this fourth and goal situation in second overtime. Um, Regardless if you called a halfback gut, whatever the play call was, that he's supposed to hand it off up the middle. One, you had the wrong running back in there. Will Shipley is a fast, um, running back. He's your agile guy. He's your third down back. Hey, we're gonna dump it to you in the flats. Go get us 10 yards. That's what Will Shipley is. Will Shipley is not the guy you line up 4th and goal and hand it to him in the backfield to get those 2 or 3 yards that you need. They had the running back for that. My predicament or my issue with the play call, regardless if it was a read option or whatever it's supposed to be, why the fuck are you in shotgun? Like, 4th and goal from the inch line. You need you could A, ran a tush push, you could, or just ran halfback, but why are you lining up and why are you setting yourself back 5 yards farther than you need to be? That gives the defense more time to get penetration in and all this other stuff. Why? I will never
And
understand.
boy, did they ever, because they were in the backfield before he even got a chance to hand the
Yeah,
ball off.
this and it's not just a Clemson issue. I see this issue across the board in college football, but I as the second I saw them line up and I was like, "This is already stupid." Like, I don't care if you convert this or not. You should not be lining up in shotgun formation at the 2-inch line and then trying to run the ball forward. I hate when coaches do that. It makes no sense to me. The and the lack of it seems like running an I formation, or under center anymore is taboo unless you're Iowa or, a Big Ten West team. Like, if you're not a Big Ten West team or you're not a service academy, you should not be running under center. Everything needs to be out of the gun. And it's so mind-bogglingly stupid that that's what a lot of coaches do now. I saw Max Brown, the former USC and Pittsburgh quarterback. He's on TikTok now. I see a lot of his videos. And he was talking about how offenses, that they fall into 4 major categories now. And if you haven't seen that video, go find him on TikTok, go watch that. But I would say offensive coordinators as a whole, and I think it's across the board, NFL, college, even from what I've seen in high school, there is no creativity to this anymore. Everything is copy and paste, and Clemson's running the same thing as and we add a few little wrinkles here and there to call it our own, but everybody runs the same offense. Everybody loaded up NCAA 14, and since there's not new ones coming out every year, we can't create our own playbooks, and so we just all run the same damn thing. It's so frustrating to watch, and there's no like when the spread offense came in. Oh, this is so revolutionary, and it took defenses time to adjust to it, but now there is no new influx of offensive creativity is the way I'll put it, and defenses across the board. I'm not trying to take anything away from great defenses. You still need to go out there and play and put playmakers in the right position and stuff. But we see the same shit year in, year out now. And it's so easy for these defensive coordinators from one week to the next to be like, hey, this is the offense we played this last week. This is the offense we're going to play this week. Instead of a tight end over here, they're going to flip it to there's so little creativity. It hurts my brain to watch, and I hate when we praise these coordinators that have one fluke season where they're really good and they have a loaded talent. So, hey, let's hire him at Clemson. Let's throw him in here at Clemson and all this other. And then you go and you have 4th and goal from the 2-yard line, and then you run a freaking. If it's supposed to be going off of what Dabo said, it's supposed to be a halfback gut, and then the quarterback decided to keep it. Um, There was another comment Dabo made, I'm trying to find it right now, um, that he said that really, really irked me, but I can't find it, but I was reading about it, and Dabo Sweeney just likes to say dumb shit that there's times and places for, and that's always been my problem with him. But let's get off of Clemson. Let's go to another pivotal ACC matchup we had this past week. It was our game of the week. Went out of the tunnel. We had Duke visiting Florida State. Um, I thought Duke had this. Riley Leonard looked good. The whole team looked good. And then he goes down, and then Duke just failed to move the ball. Florida State was able to take advantage of them. Slade, we were texting on Sunday. You were a little upset. You said you wanted to vent some frustration today, so I'll give you the floor to talk about Duke.
I just think that, like you had already mentioned, they were playing great with Riley Leonard. Obviously, quarterback is a big deal with these college football teams, but I think that the fact that you're unable to move the ball forward for 40 minutes in this game after Riley Leonard basically goes out, it's just disappointing. And at that point, I think that they just gave up as a team in terms of play call too, because they put in a quarterback who they could have given him a chance to air the ball out a bit, and they did not. It
Mhm,
was a quick slant pass or hand the ball off, and that's what he was limited to. Um, I mean, he did suck at his pass attempts also, which is maybe reason as to why, because he was 1 for 6. But I just think that you're up 17-10, and then you score one field goal in the following 40 minutes of the game. I
mhm,
just don't understand it. I think that Duke gave up as soon as Riley Leonard went out. I think that there's definitely a lot of different play calls that they could have went to. They could have went to Wildcat because obviously Riley Leonard, I don't know if this is newsflash, but Riley Leonard doesn't throw the ball much either.
mhm,
It compared to the other college quarterbacks, he is a run pass quarterback and he runs the ball a heck of a lot too. I mean, there's a lot of games this season that he's been in and last year that he is the leading rusher on the team as well. So I just think that they could have done a lot of different things, and this was the perfect opportunity to do this against a team that look. Riley Leonard went out. You're down by 7. Obviously, what you're doing to finish out that first half isn't working. So when you come into the second half, you just completely switch it up.
mhm.
Because if you keep up what you're doing, I don't even know how many yards they had. It was not good after Riley Leonard went out. But yeah, I think that from a coaching perspective, they could have done much different. I think that they just basically gave up. They saw that he didn't hurt the same ankle or high ankle sprain, whatever he had, that this time it's a knee. And they're just like, well, season's done. Let's
Mhm.
pack it in, get third stringers out there, let them get some reps in, and call it a day.
Yeah. Um, I mean, but again, I think this goes back to, like you said, play calling. When Leonard goes out, it's towards the end of the third quarter. Actually, it's in the fourth quarter. Duke is leading 20-17, and they get the ball down. It's when he went out. Let me see here. It was so the last play he was in was 1st and 10 at the Florida State 35. He ran for 12 yards, but then there was also a 15-yard penalty. So the first play he's not in. It's 1st and 10 at the 11. And they do a run, a run, a run, and then on 4th and 3 they try to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Again, 0 and I understand you're throwing he's not a true I think he's a redshirt freshman quarterback
Why
into this.
is everyone against kicking fucking field goals?
Yeah. Um, and so yeah, again, I mean, you kick a field goal there, you're up by 6. Even if Florida State continues their drive, they go down, they score a touchdown, you're only down by 1. Um, but I'm just looking at this in terms of I understand this is a redshirt freshman QB getting thrown into a very hostile environment. Um, but you can't sit there. Florida State knows at that point, hey, they're going to try and run the ball because they don't want this kid to make a big mistake, throw a pick six, something like that. But the fact that they just willingly ran the ball 3 times in a row, and then on 4th and 3, you're like, "Hey, now let's throw the ball." It just this stupidity in the play calling, again, just irritates me, and this is what's so funny, and I don't wanna talk too much about the Michigan sign stealing scandal because that's all we talked about all week on TikTok, we talked about it on a Saturday, um, is James Franklin came out and said, it's a little odd, you don't think about it in the moment, but after the game, you're like, man, that was a surprising play call I come up with there, and
Unpredictable.
unpredictable play call, and somehow they were in the right position. James Franklin is the least unpredictable play caller I've ever seen in my life, and we're going to talk about Penn State here in a little bit, but um, that was the epitome of predictable play calling. Okay, backup quarterback's coming in. He's never played here. They want to get let him get his feet under him. They're just going to run the ball. Let's load the box. We'll play man on the outside. He has to make a great throw, but we guarantee they're going to run the ball here. And sure enough, 3 straight runs. And then, you try and throw up a prayer on 4th and 3. I just hate the play calling there. Um, again, this is, I can't stand bland offenses.
Do
With,
you
with
think
and I'm not saying you
do
need a trick play. Let me be clear. I'm not saying bland as in terms, but when you again run the same thing as everybody else, and you just have this predictable style that you're not going to get great results no matter how good your players are. I think Duke was controlling the ground game up to that point, and that's what Duke's offense is. Hey, we're going to run the ball a lot. we're going to eat a lot of this clock, but we have the ability, if we need to, we can spread it out, throw it. We'll throw that in every once in a while, and that's what makes our offense so good. Uh, but it's a run heavy offense, but just zero predictability or unpredictability in the play calling.
Do you think instead of the pass on fourth and three, they should have lined up in shotgun and ran maybe a read option or a
Yeah,
halfback dive?
100%. Yeah. No, but yeah, like you said, 100. I really feel like they should have just kicked the field goal there.
Their
Hey, let's.
kicker's pretty good.
I mean, it was a
He
chip
made
shot.
a
It
he
was
made
an
a
extra point
45
field
yard
goal.
field goal earlier
Yeah,
in the game. So
that's
I
an
mean,
extra point field goal. You're kicking from the 4 yard line. That's an
yeah.
extra point. Um, but I I would rather them lined up in shotgun and tried to hand the ball off again than. But no, again the unpredictable and their defense had been playing well, and then from that point on, their defense could not get off the field. Florida State that first touchdown drive was 14 plays. Duke goes out there, it's a 3-play drive. Uh, Florida State goes out 7-play drive. Duke 4-play drive. Florida State 5-play drive. I mean they were already getting worn down by that point. Because again, Duke's mentality is, hey, we're gonna grind the clock here, give our defense a break because our defense is our team. Obviously, we have Riley Leonard; he's a very good quarterback, but our defense is our blood. All right, we
Mm,
can't let our defense fail, so we need to give them breaks. That's why we're very run heavy. We eat the clock. Um, and then you have that situation. It's a very long touchdown drive by Florida State. Again, I'm not saying they don't score or they do if Duke kicks a field goal there, but I think that drive's a lot shorter. I think that gives your defense less rest they need. But I mean that your next drive being 3 plays, -9 yards is not going to help anything regardless. Um, let's move out of the ACC now. Let's go to the Big 12. So Quinn Ewers is going to be out for at least a few weeks with an AC joint injury. Do you think Texas should be worried that they're going to have to play some of these upcoming games without Ewers, or do you think Texas will be fine? I know you're a Texas fanboy over there, so I just want to get your thoughts on it.
I'm worried for them. I mean, before the injury to Quinn Ewers, I was kind of worried based on how I saw the Oklahoma game going. Um, I mean, I'm all my chips are in the bag for Oklahoma Texas rematch at the end of the season. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. It was a great game. I mean, we had talked about
Mhm.
it. If we got to see an Oregon Washington rematch, if we got to see a Texas Oklahoma rematch, and if we got to see, which we won't get to see this obviously, but if we got to see one of the three Penn State, Michigan, or Ohio State uh, replay game,
Next year.
right. I mean, maybe in the playoffs you get to see Ohio State and Michigan play again or something. You don't know how that works out, but
Yeah.
uh, those are like what you want to see. Those close games that were like just hard fought back and forths. Um, and Oklahoma originally, I was like, they have two kind of tough road games coming up. So I was like kind of worried that maybe they would lose and there would be like this three-way type thing going in the Big 12 possibly come the end of the season. And then Quinn goes out, but I think that Murphy will do enough to get them through with where their schedule's at right now. I
Mhm.
I don't think that I think that everyone's going to talk about we're on Arch Manning watch, we're on Arch Manning watch. I don't think that he's going to touch the field.
No, I don't think he
I
should.
I think that they're going to keep him out. I think that his dad Cooper probably made it very clear that they don't want him to play it all this season. I mean, if I was him looking to get the best opportunity, I think that you want to wait a season to play. You want all this hype and stuff to die down so that there's not so much pressure on this kid before he even
Mhm.
steps on the field. So I think that they're going to run with Murphy, and I think that they're going to be a very run heavy offense. I mean, that's what you saw at the end of the game. Murphy didn't even throw a touchdown. They had like a 16-yard uh, breakaway rushing touchdown, and then turnover on downs on Houston, and then they just kneeled the ball twice to end the game. I don't know. It's going to be close, but I think that the rest of their team is good enough to get them through the next couple weeks.
Yeah. I think Murphy will be fine. Y I really feel like Quinn Ewers, and this is I don't mean to be disrespectful with this comment. I don't feel like he's anything super special. He's a very good quarterback, but he's not like an over the top, like we saw last year when he got hurt. Obviously, it was I would say a big drop off from Ewers to Hudson Card. But Hudson Card was still very serviceable in this offense. They still won a lot of football games. They looked very good for the most part. But if you look at, and I just feel like Ewers is more of the game manager style quarterback. He can make big, flashy plays, and he can certainly win you games. But uh, I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. Now, I mean, obviously, if Murphy goes out there and just shits the bed, it's going to be a huge issue. But I don't see that happening. I think the biggest test that they're going to have left, I think he'll be back in time for Texas Tech. Um, but I think the biggest test they have left is Kansas State coming to Texas in 2 weeks. I really feel like that's gonna be a huge matchup. Kansas State is catching momentum more and more, especially ever since that Oklahoma State loss, and Oklahoma State's looking better and better every week. But Kansas State, I watched them last week against TCU. They found something on that offense because they looked unstoppable. Um, Obviously, TCU's had their issues this season, but TCU is coming off a huge victory. I thought they would have a lot more momentum behind them, and Kansas State just steamrolled them. They looked incredible on both sides of the football. Um, so, I mean, I think even with Quinn Ewers, that's a game I'm going to watch if I'm Texas. But with Ewers being out, that's going to be. I need to see how Murphy plays in a full game against a pretty good opponent, BYU. Um, but that's that game against Kansas State's the one I have circled right now is like, okay, this is going to be his big test and Texas as a whole to finish out the rest of their season.
Do you? I mean, obviously my cash out bets and whatever have all sucked. So realistically, I am taking BYU plus 17.5 on the road this week because I mean, I don't think that the game is going to be that blown apart, especially with a quarterback that doesn't have as much experience. And I agree that I don't think Quinn Ewers is like this spectacular person that could go and play at any school in the nation. But I do think that playing time on the field means a lot, and so I
Yeah.
think that we're going to see a lot of problems this week. And I think that this could be like where it's very close in the first half. Texas could even be on upset alert in the first half, and then you see them kind of pull away and maybe win like 27-14 or something, or 31-17, something like that.
Yeah. See, so here's and this is why I'm not trying to, and we're going to talk about the undefeated teams here in a minute. But this is why I try not to jump the gun on teams coming off of a bye week. Um, we looked at Ohio State against Maryland 2 weeks ago. I mean, they had a huge win. They go to a bye week and they come off that bye week. They play Maryland. They looked ugly in the first half, very sloppy. It's hard to have so much momentum behind your team, take a week off, and then try to get yourself back up for a game. I really feel like that's why both Oklahoma and Texas, and for different reasons. Oklahoma had a huge momentum boost, and then we got to sit here idle for a week, practice, and then go play a game. Texas, on the other hand, had a huge letdown. We got to sit with that for a week, and then we got to go play a game. Um, and then I think the other thing that leads to the spread being 17.5 right now is if you look at uh, BYU's two losses. One was to Kansas, which Texas blew out, and the other loss was to TCU, and that was not even close. And again, TCU is not looked great this season, and they go out there to beat BYU 44-11 at home. So it's clear here that BYU struggles to travel. Um, all of their other wins in conference have been at home. Their only big road win was at Arkansas, and Arkansas does not look very good now. So I feel like there was definitely some reason going into this, but again, like you said, this offense can take a while to get going with the new quarterback under center and adjusting to everything at game speed. So I agree with you there, but I can at least see like this isn't a line where I'm looking at going, wow, this makes no sense at all. I can at least understand a little bit of it and the reason behind it. Hey, let's make the spread 17.5. Um, let's leave Texas. Let's head over to Penn State. We were very excited for this matchup, and I'll be honest. From my standpoint, Penn State did not show up on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense looked very good. Their defense should have had well, I guess, one of their touchdowns on the weekend. It was a very ticky-tack holding call or pass interference. I don't remember what they called it at
Pass
this point.
interference.
Um, but nonetheless, I guess technically it was. It was unnecessary too. I guess that's the most frustrating part. Is the dude didn't need to tackle Marvin Harrison Jr. like that. Um, but I want to ask you, as a Penn State fan, to you, what was the most frustrating part of watching that Penn State game and the eventual loss?
I think that you had kind of alluded to it at the beginning of this when we had said that James Franklin then went on stage earlier this week and talked about unpredictable plays and how it was just weird that someone had the exact offense to go against this unpredictable call. Um, James Franklin is the king of running the ball on 3rd and 8 and it being 4th and 4 and wondering if he should keep the team out there or send the punt team out when they're on their own 20-yard line. I think they're 1 of 16 or maybe 1 of 19 on 3rd downs. It was
One of
just
16, yeah.
yeah, it was horrible, and um, they really weren't calling. It didn't feel as if they were calling the same passing plays for Drew Lar that they were previously in the season. It
Mhm.
seemed like they completely tried to change up the offense uh, just for this weekend in hopes that they threw Ohio State off. And it's like I don't. I think that you're better off just going in and playing what's been working for you
Yeah.
against one of the top 5 defenses in the country. Now, you also have one of the top 5 defenses in the country at that time. You would think that you would just go out and try and beat them with your offense, Hope the defense is that your defense is able to go out there and stay out there the whole time. Their defense is spectacular. Obviously, like you
Yeah.
said, who knows how the game goes. If Penn State kind of gets a jolt of energy, they start kind of changing up the play calls on offense. If that touchdown isn't pulled back for the penalty, but I mean, then you see that 2 more penalties happen on the same drive. They basically hand a touchdown to Ohio State there right after that touchdown was pulled back from them. So it was quite the swing in momentum, and so it's just disappointing to see. Um, I think that it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes. With without bringing up like completely in topic with the whole Harbaugh and whatnot, I'm anxious to see how Michigan's offense plays against what we saw was a very good defense in Ohio State. And after that game, I still think Penn State's defense is much better than Ohio State's. I think that Penn State didn't play offense at all.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 of 16, like you said, from on 3rd downs. I mean, Penn State was one. I don't know how high up they were in offense, but they were the only team through like 6 weeks without an offensive turnover. Drew Lar had not thrown an interception. He had like a 70% passer rating at the time. Like he was just, it was crazy what their offense was putting up because we hadn't really seen that from their offense recently. And then to just go in and completely do the complete opposite. I mean, I think he was like 15 to 35 then. Like it was just a very bad offensive game for Penn State, which then made it look as if Ohio State's defense is just all that much better.
Yeah. Um, again, and this goes back to the Penn State coaching staff coming into that game, and if they denied this or they thought that their wide receivers matched up well against the Ohio State secondary, you were out of your goddamn mind. And I'm not trying to discredit the Penn State wide receivers. They're just very young, and they're
Yeah.
not the caliber that we've seen in years past. It seems like at least once every year for the past, I don't know, I would back even before Allen Robinson, but Allen Robinson is like the first thing that pops out to me. I remember, when he was in college, that's when Penn State's offense really started to take off. They always had a deep threat. There's no deep threat on this Penn State, offense. Um, and it really seemed like the run it was successful at first, but then, Jim Knowles made his adjustments and then it started to struggle. And Penn State went, well, shit, there goes our run game. We're just gonna, try and go one on one with this pass defense, which was the wrong decision to make. There was other ways to get your run game going. There's better ways to get your passing game involved than just kind of throwing shit at a board and seeing what sticks. I agree with you. In their past games, they had the game plan for it, and whenever we saw one thing start to struggle, they had everything in place to okay, here this is how we're gonna pick up in another department, and then we'll come back to this later. We didn't see that from Penn State this time, and if my only issue with the Penn State defense is, again, a very good defense, and, they held their own. Um, m my issue is this is 2 years in a row now. You let Marvin Harrison Jr. set career high in receiving, catches and yards. I don't know how you take that game last year, you see everything he did beyond that game. And then you see even just the first half. You take the first half and you don't go, damn, maybe we just stick two guys on him and or do something because I really Ohio State's offense is decent, but if they can't get Marvin Harrison the ball, they really start to sputter more and more. And we saw that in the first half. I feel like Harrison was involved, but it wasn't big plays. And when he wasn't getting those big plays, their offense struggled. They weren't putting up a lot of points. All of a sudden, Marvin Harrison Jr. gets free a couple times in the second half, and that's when we saw the game kind of start to get blown open. So I guess the frustrating part watching that Penn State defense is, and looking at Manny Diaz is again, you just got your ass roasted by him last year. First half, you saw spurts of it. You gotta you you need the game plan from Marvin Harrison Jr. If for every team going forward, I think they learned that watching this game. That was the most frustrating part for me. It's just the lack of attention to Marvin Harrison Jr. It seemed like they played.
Lack of attention in general.
Yeah.
We had described this team as possibly being maybe like a B version of Michigan's offense. Um, Not like the star power wide receivers like they're like what you were just mentioning. Penn State has had an NFL caliber wide receiver on their roster the last couple of years since Allen Robinson.
Mhm.
Somebody has gone to the NFL and are a name brand person now in the NFL. Uh, they have the quarterback that everyone's like, I don't know if they're going to be good or not. JJ McCarthy, Drillar. Um, what has everyone talked about with the two offenses and what they could just rely on, in the backfield? Two running backs that you can just plug into the game. If one gets tired, you put the other one in. One's as good as the other one. What did they do? They didn't hit each of these two guys. They had 9 carries each.
Yeah.
Ohio State's running back had 24 carries.
Yeah.
They didn't even have their two running backs combined for the same amount of carries as Ohio State's running back. And Ohio State didn't even feel like they were running the ball. Like you said,
Yeah. Yeah.
they were just passing the ball to Marvin Harrison for 6 yards every drive.
Yeah. And again, I feel like as soon as they realized, oh, they adjusted to us, and they just panicked and they said, okay, well, we got to go away from the run. And again, and it was funny watching Nick try to come to terms with this loss over the weekend and making excuses for friends. I was just laughing because I used to do the same thing for the other coaches. And then when at Oregon, and then when Dan Lanning, he came in. I love Dan Lanning. I think he's a great coach. But that Washington loss, I was very critical of him. And I mean that's what part of being a fan is. But watching Nick go through the process of grieving, but then start kind of defending James Franklin, I found absolutely mind-boggling because well, yeah, he has this great winning percentage and all this other stuff, and well, look at what Joe Paterno did against ranked team. It was a completely different fucking era. You can't look at what Joe Pa did because
Yeah, they were
when
doing
team
things in Joe Pa's era that aren't allowed today.
yeah, exactly. Well, just like how teams were across the board and all this other stuff. I was just laughing and just defending him because this is James Franklin. What we saw on Saturday is James Franklin, and everybody it brings up his record against ranked teams. It doesn't matter what teams he's playing, is he gets stuck in his ways. I think it was 2018. Whenever people bring up James Franklin, and I just think of how irritating his play calling is and just his style of coaching. I believe it was 2018 when they played Ohio State. That was the Ohio State defense that had like Chase Young and all this other stuff. And it was a great game back and forth. And Penn State had the ball late with a chance to drive and win the game. It was 4th and 1, and they ran a goddamn read option up the middle on one of the most staunch rushing defenses you've ever seen in your life. And it was this dumbest play call I have ever seen. The wide receivers were just standing there, and the corners knew it was a run. They just kind of just stood there and just chilled. And it's like this again, his unpredictable play calling is so
He
infuriating. And
is
I'm not even a Penn State fan, and it just irritates me. And then after the game, when he's running off the field, wherever the fans like, well, why the hell did you run the ball there? And he got into it with the fan. And then the other thing that comes to mind is when he ran 2 fake field goals in the first quarter against Michigan, and neither one of them worked. And he thought the second one would work for some reason. I think they took the second one back. I think that the kicker like fumbled it, and Michigan picked it up and took it back for a touchdown. But this is James Franklin. This is what you get year in, year out. It is super simplistic, and he refuses to as soon as something starts working. Okay, we're done. We're not going back to that anymore. And
here's
that's what I don't like about him.
I understand there's a lot of people that feel the same way. I'm not going to defend him at all here, but I don't think it at any point. I think he could lose to Michigan by 30, and I don't think he's on the hot seat. I
No.
think that he constantly brings the team to 10th ranked in the nation. They rise up to about 7th in the nation each season. Then they'll drop back to 14th. Then they'll win their bowl game and end the season at like 12th in the nation. He brings in a ton of recruits. He brings in a ton of money and scholarships and a ton of like donorship money and stuff. I I think that like you're just stuck with it. You
Yeah.
hired a coach that you're not able to replace because here's the thing. There's nobody out there that's available right now that's better that's
Right.
going to come to Penn State. And if he goes away, the school is not going to be good at football for 5 to 8 years
Yeah. Yeah. I
because
mean,
he would be leaving at the perfect time for people to transfer the hell out.
yeah. And I'm not saying fire him. I'm not going
No,
down
no,
that road.
no.
I'm just
I'm just
saying
saying the Penn State fans, they're
yes.
either like, oh, it's not James Franklin's fault. It's like, oh, Ohio State's stealing signs like Michigan or whatever, or fire James Franklin. Like it's one or the other, and there's no like, look, you either be happy that the team wins every game but two,
Mhm.
that they win every game but two during the regular season, or you need to be ready to go back to 7-6 or whatever it's going to be here in hopes that you make a bowl game.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you're exactly right. I mean, you could fire him and you could take a chance on like an up and coming offensive coordinator or something like that. But again, that's very risky. There's no proven head coaches out there on the job market. And James Franklin is a very good recruiter, and he does a lot of very good things. I'm not saying he's all bad.
Mhm.
Um, I honestly feel like, and I was just thinking about this as you were talking. He's Mario Cristobal is James Franklin 2.0. I really feel like that's what it is because Mario Cristobal, excellent recruiter, can do a lot of very good things. Mario Cristobal just can't manage a clock. James Franklin can at least do that. But just in terms of watching when he was at Oregon, I really feel like now that I've watched more and more Penn State games because of doing this and all this other stuff. He is an older version of Mario Cristobal, a more experienced version of Mario Cristobal, and I just realized that as you were talking, and I really feel like that's the case. But enough getting mad at Penn State. Let's move over and let's talk. There was a lot of teams that remained undefeated this past week, but we had quite a few scares. Which team that remained undefeated, that still won, gave you the biggest cause for concern going forward? Looking at them, and I want to get your opinion on this. Again, we had quite a few. You had mentioned Florida State already. Washington had a close game. Um, Ohio State, obviously, Michigan, all the teams that remained undefeated. Who gave you the biggest scare?
Oklahoma.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
I think that they should have never been close with UCF. I think that this is the closest game that should have never been close. And I think you said it perfectly. They came off of such this huge high that they they came in and they I think they scored 10 points in the first quarter and then they put up a touchdown in the second quarter, but UCF scored 17 in the second quarter and basically just dismantled Oklahoma's offense. It seemed like in the second quarter there, and then their own UCF's own offense just kind of ran the table, just scored every time they were on the field that quarter, and then they were able to I think that they kicked 4 field goals in the second half to end the game out. But I mean, it just and I thought Oklahoma was going to lose when they went into the fourth quarter, having not scored in the third quarter.
Mhm.
So I just it was very worrisome for me in terms of Oklahoma and being a Pac or a Big 12 possible champion and hopes for the Big 12 to get a team into the playoff for this year because it's going to take either Texas or I mean, it's going to take a team like Oklahoma going undefeated and beating, I don't know, a Texas or whoever else is up there ready to compete, for the Big 12 championship, or someone like Texas going undefeated the rest of the season and beating Oklahoma by, I don't know, like 7 points or something like that for the committee to be like, yeah, this team deserves to be in over, I don't know, Ohio State who lost to Michigan by 2 points or something.
Right. Um, so for my pick, I'm gonna go with Washington. And it's as an Oregon fan, obviously, I don't want to be hypocritical because they did beat us, but Arizona State is. a team that'll play you close and give you a hard fought victory. But the fact that this score is 15-7, and quite frankly, Washington lost this game. I don't care what the scoreboard says. That was a bullshit pass interference call that the refs missed. The drive continues. 2 plays later, Washington gets a pick six.
Mhm.
Um, Washington was handed this game by the referees. They absolutely did not deserve to win it in any fashion. Arizona State outgained them 341 to 288 yards. Washington had 4 turnovers. Arizona State had even more first downs. They had more time of possession, 37
Almost
minutes to
40
22.
minutes.
Yeah. Um, just and I understand, kinda having a come down off of that huge victory of Oregon at home, but I think that's the thing that worries me the most is this game was played at home. It's not like you had to, turn around from the Oregon game, go on the road and play again. You had Arizona State come to Washington, and you played like that, and, don't give me, "Oh, it's raining," and this is Washington. It rains up there all the time. You can't tell me you weren't
Mhm.
prepared for weather. That scares me the most for any team going forward, and we talked about it at length. Slade's sick of hearing it, but they have a ridiculously grueling schedule coming up. They go on the road to Stanford this week, and then they're at USC. They host Utah, at Oregon State, and then they have Washington State coming to town. Um, After the Oregon game, I was like, "Hey, I maybe they have the best shot at going undefeated the rest of the way." Obviously USC has had their struggles, all this other stuff, but that after that Arizona State game, again, I don't see any way that they make it through that unscathed unless something major changes, and they can get refocused and get back to that team that we saw play Oregon. Um, but that was very concerning to watch. And when I went to bed, Arizona State was up, and I was like, I need to go to sleep, but I kind of want to stay up and see what happens. But again, a BS call, you kind of hands them the win, but a win nonetheless. Um, so let's talk about our most surprising and disappointing team from week 8. Slade, give me your picks for both.
Uh, so my biggest surprising team has to be LSU. I saw them winning this game, but I thought that Army would at least get on the board. LSU's offense is just all that and even more than what I had thought. I think like 2 weeks ago I'd given them uh, a nomination for the award for best offense, and I mean they just are a crazy offensive team, and it's ridiculous.
My most surprising team, I'm going to go with Boston College. This is a team I didn't see winning more than 2, 3 games this season. And now, honestly, looking at their upcoming schedule and how they played the last few weeks, I think they have a shot at a bowl game, which I find very surprising. But they go on the road to Georgia Tech. Obviously, Georgia Tech has had their struggles this season, but they just came off a huge victory against Miami. You would think that would kind of spur them, going forward and give them some momentum. And Boston College put a beat down on them.
Hmm.
So that's my most surprising team for week 8. What about your most disappointing team?
Most disappointing team has nothing to do with on the field. It's Connor Stallions in Michigan. Why you would use your own name to do this is just ridiculous. And if they actually have video that's sent in from the stadiums, like if multiple stadiums send in videos of this guy with like a 90s camcorder out recording the silence, I mean, just ridiculous. This dude he was buying like supposedly a couple tickets on each sideline and going to games
So it
like
wasn't him filming, he would send other
correct,
people. Yeah.
his friends or whatever, whoever he's bringing with him, yes. But, I mean, he's going to big games like we saw with Penn State, Ohio State this last weekend, and, just, kind of putting people on each side of the field. I don't know, it's you've got coaches that are pretty good and have done this for a while. I say pretty good lightly because James Franklin says, whatever. But then you also have Deion Sanders saying like, it's not like baseball. You throw in a curveball. I know how to hit a curveball. I know
Mhm.
how it's going to be a different swing. He's like, it's different. You're going to run the ball. I still don't know where you're going to run the ball. So
Yeah,
like, I still have to figure out how to stop you running the ball.
exactly. And here's my thing, and Michigan's just the first team. I think they
They're
did it.
all doing it.
Yeah, I absolutely, and I feel like it's a case of boy who cries wolf, and all these teams are coming out and complaining about it. And again, I get it, you don't like it, but a lot of these fan bases who are throwing a lot of dirt on Michigan right now, I think are going to be very surprised when the spotlight all of a sudden gets turned on them. I brought this Josh Pate. He makes
Mhm.
college football content. He posted a video giving his 2 cents on it, and I commented on the video, and I was like, "Listen, do I think they cheated? I do." But I was like, "Do I think every other team is doing this?" Also, yes. And everybody was commenting, replying to my comment saying, "It doesn't mean they shouldn't get punished." I'm not saying don't punish them. I'm just saying don't be surprised when your team all of a sudden gets called out for doing the same thing, and so um, it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward and what more evidence comes out. But like you said, just very stupid to do it the way he did. Um,
In your own name.
yeah, that just makes no sense to me. Um, but my most disappointing team is going to go to Washington.
Yeah, I figured.
Let's go ahead and let's look at our updated pick standings and our cash out bets after week 8. I had a huge week. I don't
Yeah,
want
you
to
did.
pound my chest too much, but I went
Catching
10
up.
and 10-2 in game picks. I went 3-0 in cash out picks. But let's look at game picks. I'm only 5 back now. I'm slowly closing that gap. That's supposed to say 82 for you. I forgot to change that.
Uh,
Actually, yeah, 82 for you.
yeah, I was gonna say, how am I 4
No.
losses back?
No, that's my fault. I thought I changed it. So you have 82 wins though. So you're 2 games back of Nick. It looked like you were gonna gain some ground on him, and then I forget what late game it was that flipped, and it cost you a spot. Um,
I'll tell
but
you
yeah,
right now.
I took all of them off the sheet. Um,
No, no, no. I had them saved on my
oh, there you go.
thing here. Utah, USC, and Oklahoma State, West Virginia are the only ones that I think I picked opposite of him.
No, we all
But
took
neither of those.
USC. We lost that one. I think it was the Oklahoma State, West Virginia. I think he took
Yeah,
Oklahoma State, and or yeah, he took Oklahoma State. You took West Virginia.
in
Um,
Nebraska, Northwestern. I took Northwestern, and I
yeah, I was
thought
like,
they were going to get done.
it looked like they might for a second.
Yeah.
They barely Nebraska barely hangs on. But then our updated cash outstanding. Nick is finally dethroned, and I passed him, so I'm at 12-9. He went 0-3, which I found very surprising, especially after the week he had before. I'm just terrified that's going to happen to me this week. And you and I were talking before, but I texted you Saturday morning after the show was over, and I said, "Hey, just put $5 on my 3 cash out picks to hit." Completely forgot about it. Like, the games are over. I knew I went 3-0. I'm like, "Hell yeah, like, that's awesome." And then I just happened to be scrolling through our texts, and I remembered that I sent that to you, and I was like, "Holy shit, I only won 30 bucks, but still, that's huge for me." So I will take that any day of the week. So huge win for me there. Let's go ahead, let's look at week 9 now. We have some games on Thursday that we're gonna talk about. The first one up is Syracuse is traveling to Virginia Tech. Obviously, Syracuse is kind of under a fall from grace right now. Virginia Tech, possible resurgence, we'll have to wait and see. But this has a huge or this game has huge implications in terms of possibly making a bowl game down the road. So Slade or Nick is going to go with Syracuse. Slade, who are you going to take in this one?
Yeah, I'm going with Syracuse as well. I really thought that Nick was going to go with Virginia Tech here, kind of stick with you, but he decides to go with Syracuse. So I guess I'm going to stick with him.
The joke here is that Nick refused to fill out his pick sheet, so
He's
the Wheel of
busy.
Destiny
Yeah.
decided Syracuse for him.
I
But
honestly,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
honestly looked at this and thought Virginia Tech's not good. Syracuse lost 3 games to 3 very good teams, so I think that that's why they look as if they're bad recently. They lost
I,
to 3 ranked teams, and so I think that they're looking to
two ranked
bounce
teams.
back. Who was the third?
Clemson wasn't ranked when they played,
Oh, well, I mean, it's Clemson
so
still.
they
Clemson
lost to
could
two very
play.
good teams and
Clemson can
Clemson.
play like 10th ranked team in the nation one week, and the next week they play like they're down there with Nevada.
Yeah. But I mean, here's so I'm gonna go with Virginia Tech, and here's my concern for Syracuse coming into this game is they had a very good offense. Yeah, everything looked like it was clicking. Obviously, Garrett Schrader was back. In those 3 losses, though, they scored 24 points. It was 14-7-3. Um, I really don't. Obviously, Florida State has a decent defense, but I don't think any of those defenses were of that caliber. Virginia Tech has built up a lot of momentum the past couple of weeks. I really like how they played. It seems like they're improving better and better. Um, And then if you look at 2 of their last 3 games, they beat Pitt 38-21. They lose to Florida State 39-17. That was the week where we all watched Florida State and we're like, "Okay, we're starting to get a little concerned about this team." And then they have Wake Forest come to town and they just manhandled them 30-13. So again, their defense is looking better and better. That's why I have a lot of concern for Syracuse. And this is going to be a night game in Lane Stadium. Obviously, one of my favorite
And the
college football
same thing.
environments. Yeah. So that's why I'm going to go with Virginia Tech at home. The other game is going to be on Thursday night as well. We have Georgia State at Georgia Southern. This will be 7:30 on ESPN2. Nick is going to go with Georgia State. Thanks for not putting your picks in. Slade, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I hear I'm trying to pick up a game on Nick, so I went opposite. I went Georgia Southern. I honestly think that this game could go either way, but I think home field advantage is going to be what wins this in-state rival.
Yeah. I'm going with Georgia Southern as well. Just have a little concern for how Georgia State has played the past couple of weeks. I understand they're 6-1, but that one loss was pretty ugly at home to Troy, 28-7.
Their
Outside of
offense
that,
didn't even play.
yeah. Outside of that, they looked very impressive against Marshall. At the Louisiana game was actually on replay today on ESPN News, so I watched some of that while I was waiting for my Shake Shack. Um, but again, just not very impressive there. And then if you look at Georgia Southern, they came off that ass whooping by James Madison, and they played a very close game against Louisiana Monroe, but they still got a huge win. And they've looked pretty impressive in games outside of that. I think this game being at home gives them the slight edge. Also, I'm a little disappointed that we're playing this game in week 9 and not, rivalry weekend at the end of the season, where Georgia Southern is going to play App State instead. But that's just my bone to pick with it. But nonetheless, those are our picks for the 2 games that will be played on Thursday night. As always, that'll wrap up our show. We thank you guys so much for checking us out. Hope you drop a like and a subscribe. Head over to our TikTok and check us out over there. We make daily college football content. If you like what we're doing here, we would appreciate your support. That'll do it for this week. Oh, go ahead.
We need someone to get in there in the comments of Georgia's TikTok videos and route things up because apparently Georgia's saying they're not rowdy enough over there. People are really taking offense to the statistical top 25 and also the non-statistical top 25. So,
See, I was
yeah,
I
we
was
need.
fine with people being pissed off about the like our opinionated top
Yeah,
25. Like
yeah.
I get it, like that. But people are like screaming at me, like, "Oh my god, you don't know football." All this other shit because I put together an equation and it spits out this top
George
25.
put together a formula and a spreadsheet, and then he on Sunday for 8 hours goes through the hundred some teams, plugging their way into
133, all 133.
133 teams, plugging in the formula to their team to see where they stack up, so they can put a
Yeah,
top 25 and and the bottom 25 together,
yeah. I
all
do
off
want,
of what the computer says.
yeah.
And then people say, "You suck."
It's like, god damn, like, and the one video I posted that the weeks before I posted it and I was like, listen, this is statistical data. I agree this is not the best top 25, but I was like, this is not opinionated. And I think I just took too long to say that in that video because I was like, if you just wait 30 seconds into the video, I'm like, this is all formula based. Like we had to change our formula. That's how we got here. And yeah, people were just not having it at all. But I mean, fuck them, whatever. But I do want to give a quick shout out to Atlas Sports, another college football TikTok page that I have recently found. They found our stat-based top 25. They were loving it. They actually do their own kind of rank. It's like a tier system, but they have like a points that go into it and all this other stuff. So thanks for your support, Atlas Sports, and I really like their content. So Slade, you should go check them out as well. But
I'm going right now.
I at least appreciate somebody coming in my defense. It's good to know somebody's got my back. But that'll do it for this week's show. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you in the next video.